Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stand Down Podcast. I'm interviewing my buddy Lamonte Stewart. I haven't talked to him since our days in Miami. I'm really excited to catch up with him, see what's happened. He's always been a really interesting person, someone who's almost has too much for stand-up or is interested in too many things. I don't know. We'll see. I might even use this recording, and here he is. All right. Hey, Lamonte. Welcome.
What's up, Reskin?
Long time no damn see.
Right on, man. Catfish and gefilte fish together again.
Yeah, just like old times. It's been probably 6-7 years, maybe.
Yeah, because you left before. Yeah, yours maybe a year or two that you were gone.
Yeah. And
then 4 that I've been away. So yeah, like 6-7 years. Sweet Jesus.
And now you're no longer in Miami, I hear.
That's correct. I'm back in Connecticut because, who wants beaches and beautiful women? I mean, that's just played out. I like repressed hostility and just misery. Misery. It's like,
you sure you're done with stand-up? I mean, it sounds like sounds like those are the perfect things. Stand-ups love misery.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because like when I was in Miami, I would always come back for Thanksgiving. And flying in, it was all Miami, sunny. Flying into Connecticut was always like you're flying into Voldemort's taint. Like it was just always overcast and just shitty. And it's like, I'm so glad I don't live in this motherfucker anymore. And then I'm flying out of here, bitches. And now I'm living here. It's like, oh, you silly son of a bitch.
Total reverse.
Bastard. The thing was, though, because like even when I was doing comedy, and sorry if you have an agenda and I'm steamrolling it, but yeah, okay. Because doing comedy, it's like you love when you're doing it and you're able to like do that cowboy thing of going to any city. Like I'll walk into any open mic and be like, come on, bitch, what do you got? So coming back to Connecticut, like whenever there was an open mic, there was like the Funny Bone. They had a thing of like, if you're going to be, if you come to the open mic, we'll pick people to be on the real show. And I got picked to be on the real show. So I'm like, but I'm flying back. So you think maybe we can, do something another time, never heard back. But I was like, okay, so if I move back, the door's kind of open for this. And then I won a contest. And it's like, okay, I'll come back and
It's already waiting for me.
Yeah, it was not waiting for me. The only thing I was waiting for was a swift kick to my ego balls. It said, oh, you want a what now? You have a grand plan?
Oh no, we kept your spot, Mr. Stewart. Everything is ready for you. If you want a headline, go ahead. If not, just take the whole night. It's up to you.
Did you want the deluxe chicken finger package in your private green room that we built for you?
Yes, comedy does not wait. Comedy waits for no one. And as soon as you get up, someone takes your seat. That's what I've learned.
Yeah. Well, I never had a seat anyway. I was just walking around the table the whole time.
Just eyeing maybe an edge to lean on. Right.
Yeah. Every now and then I got to get, like a crumb would fall off and I'd be like,
Ooh, imagine. Yeah. Imagine what a bite would be like.
A morsel. And that was another, I don't know, are we reminiscing about your experience?
No, my figuring my own shit out is a secondary back subplot to the person that I am interviewing. Okay. So as much as I enjoy, like there's extra bonus for when I know the person and we have history together and we can, that gives double insight. But really, your comedy journey.
Well, despite having said all that, I'm going to talk about you real quick. One thing I remember about you was like we're hanging out one time, we're doing some show, and that was the beauty. I mean, we're going to talk about how dope it was being in South Florida because I make no mistake, that place was fucking bomb for doing comedy. In one regard. Right. Okay. But I remember we were doing a show and you're like, oh, I got to go because I got a spot at the Improv, which was the thing. You know what I'm saying? If you're a South Florida comedian, to get us to have a spot, to even be in play at the Improv is a big deal. And you're like, I got to do a spot at the Improv. I'm like, you son of a bitch, you got it. And you're like, it's not all it's cracked up to be and this and that and suck. And I'm like, first of all, that's pretty much the only goal we have down here is having a, improv in, and you got it. And you're like, yeah, it's ultimately shit. And you're like, thanks, Reskin. You're just bursting that bubble.
Damn, that's really interesting because I had that must have been the one improv show I had where everything self-destructed with my relationship with the improv.
Oh, damn.
I had a one show where I was opening for Finesse Mitchell, And it was my first weekend after working for years and getting a good amount of credit in the indie scene, and enough people being like, why aren't you at the Improv? You should be at the and but I was like, 10 people and and they always prey on newer comics, and that was like the older thing. So, and that was just me being like sour grapes. I don't want to even like try. But anyway, I got my first weekend and it was huge. And because I was so distant with the Improv and their thing, and literally just one of the contacts, Will, just hit me up. Hey, you want to work this weekend? Okay, da-da. And I was thinking, all right, this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Thursday night comes around, I'm hosting an open mic, and I get a call from someone at the Improv like, where are you?
Oh, damn.
My whole shit explodes. I'm talking to the couple comics there. I'm like, oh my God, can I go? I'll go right away. I'll meet you there. Eventually they're like, no, we're just going to run a 2-man show tonight. Come back tomorrow. I'm like, oh God.
Well, at least they didn't tell you not to come back.
Well, I did come back, and guess what?
Yeah.
I had a good hosting set. I got the crowd moving. I did my announcements. I built up laughter, and then the Finesse and his feature, Kedar, I believe his name was, which was very odd, so I remember it. They both decided that the show was better as a 2-man show from the night before. So that was the end of my career with the Improv down there at Miami, except for just like sneaking on other 420 shows and other like random shit. So that was like huge, just like misfire, badge of shame, stupid. I blame myself, and then I blamed them for not letting me know, and no one had like a confirmation email, or there was no like dates and times. It was literally just like a text. It's obvious, you can tell I'm still but it's just funny perspective wise that like you thought I was getting some hotshot improv stuff, and I was just like scraping out my foot in the door, and then my foot was covered in dog shit. So
Oh, you saw a cool little thing. That was my personal hell. Okay, whatever. Cool.
Yeah, but that one.
Also, I made the mistake. I told you before in our brief exchange early before this, I made the dumb mistake of cutting up onions that I'm allergic to, and my nose is runny, so I will be a couple times I'm going to have to duck out and handle some business.
So, I'm going to put it in
just so you wonder, just so you know.
Speaker view, so we can close in on those good nose goblins.
Yeah.
No, good. Always got to let it's a consummate showman right there, letting the audience know something that they may be, set them at ease. You're aware of it. Everything's cool.
But that's the thing. Like, one other thing that I had to do, because, you get these messages of people like, hey, I got a podcast, you want to guest? And it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then you never hear back from them. So when you send the message, you're like, hey, I got a podcast, you want to be on it? It's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then you're like, okay, we're doing it Friday. I'm like, oh, word? So, like, not having been, like, doing podcasts, you kind of got to get in like a podcast mind. And I mean that in a sense of like, I'm a chatterbox, right? I'll go on and I'll say something that in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have dropped that one. So I kind of had to like find where my lines and my walls were to where I wanted to go. So if anything comes up, like I kind of had to get like back into like, I was out of sorts. Like I've been doing college radio podcasts, all this type of stuff for a long time. So I feel like I have a sense of, keeping it moving and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But also, listen, we could say something on this that gets us canceled in 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
Hopefully we get that exciting of conversation. But yeah, I mean, that is the nature of the world we live in. You have to.
Yeah. And that's probably another reason why it's not good doing comedy, man, because that wokeness, man, I mean, don't get me wrong, wokeness was cool on a level, but as with anything that goes to an extreme, like, when I think about like things that are happening politically and that kind of thing, my first thought, I can't speak out loud or type, or I would be on a watch list, right? That's what this world is, has brought us to. So imagine if I'm going around with microphones like now, like that could be like some kind of problem. Like, and people are combative as all hell, and the lines are super, super, like, even from when we were there to now, I would say the lines are super tighter, and people will confront you about stuff. Like, you get at the random open mic, I was definitely like letting people know where I stood, but there, people would say, and you'd be like, yeah, whatever, motherfucker, shut the fuck up. And then if it was a white person, I'd be like, that was from my ancestors. And then, but like, I think it would be a whole different scene, especially, and like that's the one side of the side.
No, wokeness is that's one of the like giant themes of comedy right now that has changed comedy. It has its great things about it, has its terrible things about it. So when was the last time you did comedy? How long has it been?
So it was, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe the last time I was on stage was the election night, 2016. And this is when I moved back to Connecticut, and I'm at an open mic, and I was at what turned out to be a Republican bar, which I didn't know at the time, because I'm like, hey, Fox News is on the TV. Oh, interesting. I'm watching the returns, and I'm like, wait a second. Is he? No. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And that, I think I was actually on stage when I recognized what was happening. And I believe that was the last time I was on stage. Not because of that, but just coincidentally.
That's hard not to factor that in, though. Something broke there, whether it was America or your will to do stand-up.
Well, definitely America was, if not broken then, on the verge to being.
Mm-hmm. Showing the cracks. Yes, we are seeing the cracks more than ever now in this. Yeah. And that's one of the things I definitely respected about your comedy back then, was you didn't shy away from issues. You talked about real stuff. And as I've still been friends with you on social media since then, I've admired that as well. Like, you like to talk about real serious stuff. You're not afraid to get your hands in there. And it's not a lot. I can tell that there's fucking real anger and despair and fucking real, these are the feelings that at one point were channeled through stand-up.
Yeah.
And now that they're not, how are they coming out?
I don't know. Without stand-up, I feel like I'm just doing those Facebook posts. I do have other creative outlets in terms of what I'm doing. Like, just as an example, like, I was like, okay, I have this energy, right? And I'm not doing stand-up. So I needed, like, I was reading a bunch of, I'm a writer, like, for career and for recreation. So I was looking at a bunch of pilots that people were writing, and they were just so simply premised. I was like, well, my stuff doesn't really have it's like slice of life, and then it meanders in the description because there's a lot going on. So I was like, I need one of these simple premise, shows. So I was like, okay. And I was like, 1975, one factory town. We follow 3 families, one black, one post-hippie white family, and then a family that's in the Klan, and it's called Klantown. And then I wrote it, and I put a lot of, even though it's happened in 1975, the Klan family's like, we're going to make America great again, So
fake news.
Well, I didn't even go that. I didn't go that far, but I will definitely make the point. I definitely make him buffoonish, frightening, kind of a little bit like Black Klansman, I hate to say, but yeah, that's without getting into details of it. But like, not that it's so fucking important, but it's just, no one cares.
So this was a big thing you wrote. You wrote a pilot or a...
Not a big thing. It's just a pilot I wrote just as an exercise. It wasn't like I'm going to do anything with it, but I still read, like, producers seeking scripts, looking for writer, that, blah, blah, blah. And just the other day, they said, if anyone has a script with like socially relevant themes and diverse casts, send the first 5 pages. So in the first 5 pages of my script, just because I think I'm a bomb-ass writer, there's an incident that happens that draws you in, that drives the season. Then we meet the first 3 families, and it happens all within the first 5 pages. So I'm like, holy shit, if I was just looking for like an example to send of this thing, that's like crafted exactly. So I sent it. And now I didn't send it with the intention of like, oh, I'm going to get this and I'm holding on. Like, I sent in a packet to SNL. I sent, just while I'm here. And I do these things, but I don't do it with the expectation of it.
Right. You can't be too precious after a while.
Man, no.
Shocking approach. Yeah.
So that's what, in terms of that energy, and other than that, it's the Facebook posts and just conversations. But
because the writing I see was like, right, making some awesome book or even a pundit or some kind of like really being able to vent everyone's starting a damn podcast now. Shit.
I did podcasts 10 years ago, and
you were doing that stuff before stand-up, right?
Yeah, oh hell yeah, I was. Yeah.
Because how long did you do stand-up for?
5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But before that, when did you start doing a public speaking kind of entertainment presentation, whatever it is?
That was high school. High school, I was doing the morning. Well, I hosted in the 2nd grade. I hosted the talent show with my buddy Tim. Hosted the talent show in the 2nd grade, and that was when I was like, "Oh, word!" So that was like
feedback.
And then,
you got a little
yeah, man.
People like this juice.
When do you ever, as a child, have the opportunity to be in front of a crowd of people and just get that reaction. That's like not something you can simulate or have described to you. You can only experience it. And I think maybe, and then also, even though I have absolutely no memories of it whatsoever, my mom tells me that I was on this show on PBS Via Allegra, which I have no recollection of, but it was like a PBS show that aired like after, Mr. Rod or whatever, and I was a kid on it. I have no remembrance of it whatsoever, but being around all those cameras and in a studio or something must have clicked. Not enough to make me remember it, but something must have
well,
clicked.
You're in luck because we actually got the clip right now. Play the clip.
That would be great because I've looked, man.
We got good research team here. They're all cats, but yeah. So it's interesting. Like I'm starting to find a theme where people who've done stand-up comedy are kind of bigger than the stand-up comedy sometimes. Like there's the classic mindset is once you get into stand-up, it is an all-consuming God and you can contribute every ounce of energy you have to it and you will still never perfectly understand it, but it demands you give everything you can to it. And if you do if improv, if you do art, if you do dance, if you're wasting your time for stand-up. But I'm finding that so many people that do stand-up is just one hat that they can end up wearing. And, maybe it gives you a new skill set but beyond like, once you get over that identity of just like, I'm a comic for life. I had that for so long that like, it's cool to be on the other side of it now because I almost feel like more of a comic as a non-comic than when I was as a regular comic because I'm like making fun of that whole culture now from the back. And it's like, that's what comics do. Like, I'm not saying I'm not, and I still haven't stopped performing and stuff too. This is ultimately an exploration of like where this takes me, a re-examination of the relationship instead of like, am I off or am I on? Like, it's not that simple, like I did stand up for 14 fucking years. It's a part of me, but also I didn't want to do it anymore. So I just kind of stopped. Yeah. So like,
how long
what
have you
was
been
your
off?
Process? Not that long. I had a monthly show up until last year. So
Casa de Jaja?
Yeah, I restarted it here in Denver, and it was definitely fun, but it was different. It was different vibes. I didn't grow along with the show. I was in a different point. My relationship with comedy had changed in the scene, and it was fun at first. But then the less I went out, the less I got to like notice new talent and who's doing great. And that's how you truly like curate the best shows. Is you really have to have your finger on the pulse. But it was a way to keep me going and stuff. So it hasn't really been that long. But what was your process of walking away from comedy? Was it disillusionment? Was it quick? Was it short? I mean, long?
Connecticut, and it was an easy decision because, as you know, in South Florida, like I said, it was my time in Florida was like a fantasy for 6 years. The entire time I was there was a fantasy, and I'm grateful to not recognize it as being a fantasy in retrospect, and I appreciate it as the fantasy that it was while I was in it. And it's now like my happy place and my happy memories. But when it came time to, move back here for decisions that I'm perfectly fine with, even though I'm back somewhere I don't enjoy.
What was the decision? Was it life stuff?
My dad passed and my brother was kicking around, it was like a quick, not quick kind of end for him. So my brother was kicking around doing stuff and I was mostly on the phone because I couldn't just fly back and forth and everything. And I felt massively guilty. And then the fact that like we still had a mom, someone had to look out for. And I also felt something was going to happen. This is before Trump even was elected, but I felt something was not necessarily this, but I felt something was pending. It was just something in the air, and I needed to be near my family and friends just to be like, because I was on my own down there. You know what I'm saying? Like hundreds of people and no one at the same time.
Which, yeah, that's very Miami.
That's my experience.
That's a Miami T-shirt right there. Yeah.
So I needed to be back here, and I was thinking maybe it'd be for a period of time and I'd go somewhere else or whatever. But the bottom line is I wound up back here, and Connecticut is not as show friendly as South Florida. South Florida, we were doing that thing where we were getting up some weeks 7 nights a week, and some nights you get up 4 sets a night in 4 different venues. You know what I'm saying? Like we were bouncing around. It was killer. And so the idea of being in Connecticut, and one night I was driving and it was dark and cold and miserable, and I got there, and something about South Florida audiences, man, there's beautiful people in those audiences no matter the show you're at. And in Connecticut, it is not the same story. So as I'm driving through this horrible drive to this fucking bar that quite honestly, if I saw a Confederate flag, I would not have been surprised. And the crowd was just like, ugh. And then I did another show, and something that led to something where, I won a contest. I wound up hosting the next week, and I'm dancing. Woman's shoving dollars down my pants. Is some kind of, I don't know how we even got there. And I'm looking at her like, why am I doing this? Ugh. And I'm just like, and I know I'm no prize myself. But when you go from the fucking beautiful South Florida to the Bog Creek swamp sky where I'm at now, and it's like, oh man, the motivation for the crowds is just like, ugh. And then they would be like, hey, there's a new open mic an hour away from where you are. Like, I was finding the comedy in, like, here's the state of Connecticut. Picture the state of Connecticut, my little box here. I live, like, centrally located, like, right there. They'd be like, there's a new open mic here. There's a new open mic here. There's a new open mic. Boom. And I'm like, fuck you, man.
Damn. You thought Florida was bad for driving. That's ridiculous.
And the thing is, like, even when I was a South Florida comic, so I was between Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm shows would be maybe once, maybe twice a month. You know, it was infrequent.
Which is a 3 hour.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So even those drives were better because it was warm. You blasting your music. You're cool. You're going to a show. You're jacked from the show on the ride back.
The Cougar Squad waiting for you at the show.
That's a Connecticut thing. That was if I saw the future, I probably would have. Mind you, one of those drives back was from. I had to go up to Delray to pick up a check from doing a show, and it was just pick up a check and just
to
go
get
back.
A check. Come on.
Yeah. But on the way back, I wound up getting the worst car accident of my entire life. Car was totaled. I could have died easy. I wind up. Anyway, and even that was better.
I'm not hearing a lot of strong things about Connecticut.
Connecticut doesn't like me either. That's the only reason. And plus, I've been here like for a long time before I got the fuck out, and now that I'm back, and it's more the same energy, and it's just like and that was one of the things. Like I had a journey of like, you say, what do I do with that energy of comedy? It was like, okay, if I'm not putting all that, because that was consuming, you know what I'm saying? And if I'm not working on comedy, what am I going to work on? I need work. And one of the reasons I left in the first place, because this place depressed the fuck out of me. Like, it was fucking depressing. And I moved back, and it was just kind of quick. And I just felt that old feeling. And it's like, after being away for so long and then coming back and feeling that old feeling of why I left, I was like, ooh, I need to work on myself. So that was kind of what I did for a little while, which was really just get my head in a place where I'm not going to be defeated by this place, you know, because it was really kicking my ass like hardcore before I left. And being away from it and being able to laugh at it made me stronger. And now that I'm here, it's like I have developed enough coping skills to put up with this shit.
Huh. It's funny how you see Miami as kind of this like paradise getaway before and like after you came back home to Connecticut, because I almost see it. It's kind of mixed. I see it in reverse, having left Miami, born and raised there, and then gone to Denver, which is just like completely different city as far as just attitude.
Oh yeah. And now,
yeah.
In what way? Because I know Miami is like beautiful chaos. What is Denver?
Denver is earthy earnestness. It's like people trying, and the people are facing at least in the right direction. Like the city seems to care about the people that live there. And instead of, hey, maybe the people coming to be tourists, or maybe the crazy foreign developers who are buying giant high rises on the beach, all this crazy development. There's just like, Miami is so muddled that it's hard to find the groups that are really caring about the communities, and they're there and they're fighting hard. But in Denver, like, I have healthcare for the first time in my life from the system that works. I'm getting unemployment benefits from working for the first time in my life. Whereas in Florida, it's a fucking nightmare right now. I would not be getting a damn thing. And that attitude, you know, is it easier for an artist to survive in a city? That's going to contribute to the level of art. That's going to contribute to can the comedian survive on a little part-time job? Can they get a little assistance? Can they get rides and have even just a smaller city, even just being able to do sets? Like Miami's very spread out. You know, if you could get more than 2 in a night, you were very lucky. to be able to set that up.
Well, see, that's the thing. I was doing shows that weren't on the typical comedy menu, right? Like there were the shows that, were the typical, your Elwoods and your,
my show was one of the typical shows? Oh, cool.
Elwoods was one of the, there was the marquee shows that, there were like the typical open mics that, whatever. And then there were some
clubs.
Shows.
Right. Because like the clubs was such a small influence down there. It's almost like you had the tier 1 independent shows and then the tier 2 independent shows, which I'm guessing is what you're saying is like the alternate stuff.
So, so I would be, and then there were the shows that were just like, because I remember one time I did like one of my first black shows, which it took me a minute to get my balls up to even do, right? So once I finally got in there and I wound up meeting some of the black comedians down there. Studio 504 with, rest in peace, Daryl Crittenden. He had like him and his boys, they put together like a hang, and they got like a space in like a storefront, like a strip mall. And they tricked it out and had like a studio upstairs, and they would do shows downstairs. And it was really cool hang. And that was, oh my God. Even now I'm thinking of stories because there were a couple shows we did there. One show was one comedian who he was bombing so hard. It was like, he will never recover. This is glorious to watch. And then he flipped it 180 degrees and fucking was killing it. It's like, this is the most amazing thing I ever saw. Then he smelled himself, flipped it right back around. That was one of the most amazing sets. And then the host that night was my buddy Jay, and he's like, I never seen that before. A guy comes up, he's bombing, he kills, and then he bombs again. Oh man, so many good memories. So anyway,
so that
was the first black show I did, and then I met some of the black comedians, and it's like, yo, there's a whole lot of shows down here. You're doing those shows. Then there's these shows, and that was like a whole nother like thing was opened up there.
And did you end up doing more shows in the black circuit?
Not big time. I did them sporadically, but it wasn't like a staple. Like when it comes to the black rooms, I found myself doing more of and that's the beautiful thing about Miami. There's genres of everything. So there's the black hood rooms, and then there's the black like Caribbean Haitian rooms, right? And then there's the black poetry rooms, which are all their own thing. And then there's a bunch of private parties because like Haitians, Jamaicans do private parties. So I found myself doing like churches and like birthday parties and that kind of thing.
And stuff. Hell yeah.
No, never. There wasn't a backyard, but there was one Easter that fell on a 420, and it was a church thing, and it was outdoors, and the sun was beaming down, and it was and people were eating, and it was a hell. Typically, it would have been a hell gig, but we were having such a blast with it. It was like, it is cool. No one was dying up there, but it was just everything was against us, and it was such a loud loudspeaker. You're like. It was the block thing, and the sounds it was just large, and it was just so many of those like experiences.
Yeah. People don't understand that just like lights, sound, stage, and a room are like the basic ingredients to make comedy incredible. And like when you do shows with none of those things, it's like that's really what forges it in the fire.
You guys have been standing out in the sun for 3 hours. The line for the food is now open. Coming up next.
Yeah, I remember I did a room. I did a black church once, and it was like to get a gig in the Caribbean. Which I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to be having this Caribbean. But the Caribbean gig was a bunch of like crazy wealthy yacht owners. So I was like, wow. Where the hell does that even? Which was the worst audience ever. Just people that are like, I just caught the biggest boss of my life. My servants are gassing up the yacht. Oh, a comedy show. Interesting. But yeah, not everywhere has that culture. Not everywhere has that diversity in rooms too. Which is, makes one of the things that makes Miami special as a place to come up. But also, one of the things that makes me scratch my head as to like why we aren't a major comedy city. I mean, I can give you 10 reasons why we're not, but like, I still scratch my head. Like, we deserve it. We're a great art city,
I don't think it's I think it's just because it's so sequestered. It's such its own thing, Like, even if you're wanting to get out, you can't really get out. I was really surprised when I saw that Kevin Hart did his Heart in the City down there.
Yeah.
And, that was really cool. That was a good look. So it's not as though we're not getting the recognition. And, and comedians go down there to work out. I wish I'd ever known about one of the times Chris Rock showed up at the West Palm Improv to do his stuff, to just work his stuff out. But, that was one of the things that I wish that the community was – the great failure of the South Florida comedy community, in my opinion, was the lack of cohesiveness, and everybody was a chief. And I can't fault everybody because we're in a super narcissistic, ego-driven thing. But if we had like some kind of cohesion, where like if I'm starting a podcast page and there's 350 comedians on Facebook that in South Florida, how come my page isn't instantly at 350 as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's this? You don't have to like it. Just like it and unfollow. I just need the numbers. Like, if everyone did that for everyone, that would have made us a super dope community. Like, you could see that people were leaving. So what if we had it so like an underground railroad comedian. So like, you're in New York. Hey, look, guess who has a place to crash in New York? You're over here. Guess who has a place to crash over here? Like, Figler and his degenerates passed through. I was a little offended they didn't want to crash. I got a shit ton of space. Like, my place I got space. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I was like, yo, you could have crashed here, but they stayed in hotels, whatever. It's like, all right, whatever, it's cool. They came through, so it was nice. And
sure. You can't take it personally.
It's like, we all could have like helped each other out a little bit more if we were more of a, but that's just retrospect, Monday morning quarterback.
That's a huge point because here's the thing. If we were doing improv, we would have.
Yeah, but then we'd be improv people.
That's a team sport.
Yeah.
We're in a solo dolo sport. This is like, there's a lone wolf aspect to the whole stand-up thing. It's like, yes, you're supporting your peers at every moment, but yet there's only one spot up there and I'm going to have to slit your throat for it tonight. It's like in the form of doing comedy.
I fortunately never got to that point where it was like, I mean, I didn't like some people and I was vocal about it, but I thought they were cancer. And I was, I just thought I was helping to stop the spread of cancer. Didn't work. But at the same time, there was, I didn't have that, kill or be killed kind of thing. There was people that weren't funny and I would at most give them a, he likes doing what he does, but I wouldn't be like, yo, fuck that, this is a piece of shit, that wasn't me. And I'll tell you another thing that really boggled my mind was there were people that were ordained as being someone that was worth something or someone that was worth, checking out or whatever. I wasn't one of those people. I'm not in life. I accept it, whatever, self-awareness. But I had for 2.5 years a Monday night writer's room, right? And it was provided by, some people I met in the improv class, and they gave us a storefront, and it was, they gave us 2 large pizzas every week. There was a mic with a mic stand and an amp. We had a computer and a large screen so we could pull up comedy sketches. There was a stocked refrigerator with beers, waters, sodas, ice cream in the freezer. What? We could smoke in there.
I was gone already, right?
Nah, you were around because that stopped like a little bit. I was kind of early.
Why didn't I go to this shit, idiot?
No one did. I mean, it was like a steady group of people, and it was cool. And we would hang Monday, and then afterwards there was usually a Churchill on Monday, so you could do that, bounce over to Churchill's, or Ciro even started his over there. So there were opportunities to do a set or do a little writers meeting, then go out and do and it was a cool setup. But what are you gonna do? I promoted, as much as you can on Facebook, whatever. But people would pop in once, twice, and then like someone would be like, "Hey, man, you doing that Monday night thing?" Yeah, but there's no crowd. It's just really just a writer's room, right. And people would go up and have time and work out their set, so it was productive. And Darius, Culpepper was one of the guys that was there, and he's doing pretty ill. And he was regular. He was like, "Yo, that was really beneficial," So
For sure. Yeah.
You try.
That's one of the things. Like, I also ran an open mic at Moonshine that was like half open mic, half writer's room because maybe we didn't have enough people to make it an open mic. But that's one of the things that I will think about sometimes is the amount of effort expended in Miami if I had done it in a more cohesive comedy scene, but just wondering if you'd get more mileage with the efforts you made in a different location, or even in a different time.
Maybe, or, your one city, it would not have supported it because you would only have had a certain amount of comedians. The thing with Casa de Haha and the Elwood shows was, it seemed like on those shows, there was of 8 or 9 spots, there'd be 3 or 4 spots that were the same, rotating. And then a mixture underneath.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I get you're structuring a show and you want to have some solids in there. So that's, it makes perfect sense to me. But, there was, I don't know if you did your same thing in a different city, you might not have had the ability to structure those shows like that because there might not have been the stable of comics. Maybe, yeah, maybe no.
Interesting.
But I feel like everything that happened in Miami was supposed to happen the way it happened in Miami. Like, what else could have happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, what else could have happened? It's not like people were going to come down to, there's 3 counties of comedy and plus Plantation. I got to make my way down to South Florida.
Hialeah, baby. Yeah. I mean, that's where the new improv is, which is crazy. I mean, that was one of the things. We didn't have an improv for years. And like, I don't know, Comedy Works does a really good job of like growing local talent and making an effort to like give comedians a kind of pathway of like, you get 2 minutes on your first new talent night and you can work your way up to getting a 3-minute slot, work your way up to getting a 4-minute slot, and then work your way up to getting a almost famous slot where you maybe host once in a while. And there's a whole thing where it's like, Miami was just like, bring 10 people, get 5 minutes. Okay, bye. Like, and if you didn't bring 10, you got 9 people, maybe. Sorry.
You just reminded me of a fucking nightmare experience. I did one of those. I did the improv class, and at the end, you do the show.
Who taught it? Ramon?
This was the one Neary taught.
Neary, yeah, he was on my last pod.
I didn't bring anybody to the show because I didn't know anybody. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know. I'm not asking people from work to come to the. Fuck that.
Was it because you didn't know them or because you didn't want to like be like, hey, come see me do this incredibly complicated thing for the first fucking time?
Yeah, nice to meet you. Would you no?
Want to see me suck at something awesome? Like,
yeah, so it just wasn't in the cards of me asking anybody. And so we get to the show night, and he doesn't put me on the lineup after I paid for this fucking course. And this is the finale. He's like, yeah, you didn't bring anybody. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then something happened, and then he's like, yeah, I'll put you on. And I'm like, you'll put me on? Ever since then, I just, when something just gets a bad taste in your mouth, you just can't.
Even though it's usually pay or bring, not both.
Yeah, well.
No,
I paid, motherfuckers.
Complete asshole. I don't.
Hadn't thought about that in forever.
Yep. It's those little moments that like spark back to flame, and you're like, what the?
But you know what, too? The memories thing on Facebook with all the shows and posts and all that stuff, you are constantly reminded of what you used to do,
Yeah. So you haven't done stand-up for what, a good couple of years, 3-4 years, you said?
Yeah. Actually, and here's what's funny. In a sense,
Go on, yeah.
I know it, like, right before COVID happened, I was going to do a set. Straight up, I was going to an open mic. I was working it out in my head, and it was going to be a nightmare. And I knew it. Not a nightmare, but I knew I was going to be the person with all the regulars. Like, who's this old ass motherfucker taking up time on this fucking show, just fucking sucking their own dick on stage? I was like, yeah, I'm going to be that guy. Screw you guys. And I had my set like in my head because all I think about is how Hartford sucks and Miami was awesome. And I was going to do like a thing of like things that have gotten worse from then to now, and then always look on the bright side of life. Did it, and then go into the next thing and just keep on doing that till the clock round down. Then bright side of life. That was going to be the set, and that was like, I do that all day. So that was going to be my set, and then no more mics. So it was like COVID crushed that little experiment.
I mean, is there a big Monty Python crowd over there in Connecticut?
They were going to get it anyway.
Not only were you going to spend the entire time shitting on the place that the people all live in and how it was so much better like somewhere else. With some offshoot references of British comedy from the 70s that they're going to...
I might have said, really because all of you ugly motherfuckers in this room right here.
I like it. Become a more combative comedian. Become a more like, yay, fuck you. You can't handle this.
Man, do you remember your worst heckle like off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head. I never had one that like self-destructed. How
about your automatic worst set top of your head?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely that one. Yeah.
Was it Miami or Denver?
It was an offshoot show in mid-Florida at a college. It was a college show at Eckerd University. And, it was just, long story short, they had no idea comedy was going to happen. I was opening for like a psychedelic DJ who was a friend of mine. And all the kids they were like, all right, we all took our drugs, perfectly timed them with the flashing lights and laughter. Music we're about to experience. And then I came on stage and I just had, my jokes are bad, but I remember just saying one joke about like, this was dated as fuck, but like Miley Cyrus recently just did a photo shoot as Marilyn Monroe. It's interesting how she's emulating her career, and now if she'd only do the next part, an overdose or something like that. It was like a catty bad joke back when I like Miley now, but she was more of like a joke figure. Yes. And I just remember someone yelling, "Why is that funny?" I was like,
I might die of an overdose.
Oh, fuck, I'm about to. Yeah. And it was a disaster. I cut a 20-minute set short to like 5 minutes. And then while everyone partied, I went and sat in my car, like far enough away to be alone, but close enough to see the party, and just like brooded in pain. It was just awful. And that was the set that I asked Louis C.K. how it was going to go the week before, way long ago, way pre-Me Too Louis. And he said, it's probably going to go terribly. It's probably going to be awful, but you're going to learn a lot from it. And I did. So,
yeah, right. Did you see his latest special?
I did not. I did not see it. I've heard it's comedically sound. That's all I could say. Have you?
I did. It was exactly that. It was perfectly fine. It was good. And in terms of like, I can't really watch entire specials, but I was able to sit through the entirety of his special, like in one.
Because that's a question, right? Do you still watch comedy now?
Can't. I can't. It's not that, but I couldn't while I was doing it either. Like I would like as a scholastic adventure, but like Dave Chappelle, Sticks and Stones, that's quickly become like one of my favorite of all time, And with Eddie Murphy's pending return, I was excited for that. But did you watch any of Jerry Seinfeld's Netflix special?
No, it just came out, right?
Yeah. I watched 4 minutes of it, and I was like, is this a George Carlin tribute or robbery? I'm not really sure what I'm watching right now.
Wow.
But now it could have developed. Granted, I only gave it 4 minutes,
sure.
But even
a lot of wordplay, a lot of like, why do we call this and this?
Yeah, you have a million. All I could think about, and this, I don't know, and again, it's me, but it's like all these problems you're having are bullshit because you ride in a private jet and you have a private driver and you're just fucking making shit up to say your funny little worky words. And I'm not falling for it. And that's the wrong perspective to watch comedy.
That's a huge, this is society right now. Where do we separate the art from the artist? Can we from Woody Allen to Aziz, on the scales of severity and stuff. Aziz's special was incredible. Yeah, I think it was fantastic. And the way he addressed the controversy, I think hit the head on the nail perfectly.
For you and I, for someone else, not enough.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, but as far as public consensus was, he's been passed. But Louis, did he, in your consensus, I heard he addressed the controversy in his special. Do you think he addressed it in a way where that the public would be ready to give him
the public that understands where Louis is coming from? Yes. The public that, what I'm saying? And the thing about Louis, and fucking, what am I going to get canceled from? But the thing about Louis to me is they're treating him as Weinstein. Like him and Weinstein are the same. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure you've seen Chappelle's take on it. It's like, really? Someone pulled their dick out and you broke your spirit? Yeah. Maybe your spirit wasn't as strong in the first place. It's like, okay, let me ask you this. Like, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but when it comes to this woman dealing with Biden, who I don't love in the first place, right? How the fuck we went from Aziz to here? Sorry for doing that to you.
No, that's comedy.
I'm perplexed. Like, is her switching story to me, and I haven't even investigated deeply. Mm-hmm. Her switching story to me is a lot like those Michael Jackson kids. Like, look, you're never going to fucking get me off Michael Jackson until you actually prove to me he did some shit. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. I need proof. You motherfuckers have fluctuating stories, right? So now this lady, like, we're supposed to ignore the Kavanaugh shit, all the Trump shit for this one sketchy story with all this shit on. I don't even like Biden. I'm like, I don't want to say. Have you heard
the story sketchy? Because from what I heard, it had just as much like confirmation as like Kavanaugh stuff, which is what makes this seem like it's such a double standard on the Democrat side. Because for Kavanaugh's accusers, everyone went all out, full army. But now that we have someone, Tara Reid, who has, from what I understood, very credible allegations that are being confirmed by like relatives, other people in her life, and now they're not releasing Biden's records and all this stuff like that. It seems like a complete double standard from the Democrats and from a lot of the Me Too movement and stuff like that. Have you heard that her story? Because I've heard her story's evolved, which is not uncommon as far as victims like releasing their stories over time. It's a traumatic thing. Sometimes, you don't seem terribly convinced by that.
Listen, it's not even the story. I don't go, Al Franken. All right? That was bullshit. A picture where he's boom, we lost Al Franken.
He was a comedian at the time. He was not a senator at the time.
We played this game already, all right? In terms of my perspective, we played this fucking game, all right? We lost. They played the same exact fucking game, and they keep fucking winning. I'm not going to put the fucking wheel, the fucking broomstick in the spoke of our fucking shit for no, we're not doing it. They have changed the game. They're not playing this fucking game by the same rules.
I mean, the Republicans have always sunk lower. That's the whole thing. Are you gonna sink to their level? Or I mean, I understand.
We have a choice?
I mean, I'm 100% not one of those people who's gonna throw Biden out just because he's horrible in a certain level.
He's realize Trump horrible is in many ways.
To me, Trump is horrible on every single point more than Biden. And for me, it's worth it to get a less horrible option. For many people,
it's always the choice, the less horrible choice.
Right? Yeah. I'm amazed at the huge amount of people that are just like never Biden people. Like I understand why, and I understand that like coming as a progressive and someone who's more left than the left base of the party is like they don't give a fuck about us because they know we have nowhere to go with our vote. We're going to vote for the Green Party. We're going to vote for the other side. No. So they turn their attention to wooing the middle people, the people on the other side. And while totally ignoring everything on our side that makes the whole movement interesting and special.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fucking shit. And the thing about the Democratic primaries, it was disappointing. But at the same time, there was a few people I liked. So I was like, okay, cool. I like Alan Yang. I like Elizabeth Warren. I like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders wound up being my dude.
Yeah. But you just CNN'd him. They called him like Stephen Wang or something. Yeah. But there were a lot of interesting, charismatic people who are far better than Biden. That's the whole weird thing is that like we are left with the person who many people thought was just the last tired dog in the race. By putting their foot on Bernie's neck yet again, I'm just like,
oh my gosh,
I'm so out of being a Democrat. I almost want to unregister as a Democrat if it didn't take away my ability to vote in a primary or something. But like,
I don't know. So comedy anyway.
So back to wiggity woo woo. So it seems like you had a lot of comedians walking away from comedy is excruciating. It's extremely excruciating. That was both of those words in one to them. It seems like it was less so to you. It seems like you had to deal with some shit and you appreciated Miami for what it was. And then you were, comedy was by no means one of the major factors by which you made your life decisions.
It was a large part of my life, but I'm an adapter. Like I just see what's in front of me and accept the reality because managing expectations has been a big, big lesson in my life. So if I'm looking at the scene and looking at what I have to deal with and all the pieces that I have to play with, an early fucking PCP fucking run taught me the importance of creating the world that you got to live in.
Sorry, PCP.
Angel dust.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was like,
this is like
performance
years and years
center
ago.
of the no right. Yeah.
Performance control prescription, but no, like years ago, man. Because that's another thing that Hartford was really big for in the '90s was angel dust. So yeah, and so we had some really good chefs, and you get a good bag, and you're off. But one of the things that
I understand you can run full speed on 2 broken legs.
That's what they say. Fortunately did not have the experience. However, I did have the experience of having someone that I was with convinced that they needed to climb under a car, and but that was the whole
for safety purposes. For life reasons, obviously. For significant reasons.
Psychedelic. I don't know. I don't consider angel dust a psychedelic, but it's definitely a mind trip that takes you. Well, yeah. But it takes you like to some places, interesting places in your head, and it teaches you some interesting things. Among them, how to reconstruct your being.
Wow.
And it wasn't something that I put together until later, but it's like the experience of smoking PCP when you have a good bag, because there's good and bad. When you have a good bag, you smoke it, you drift to blackness, to nothingness, then nothing exists. And then molecule by molecule, you're putting everything back together. So you'll be like the elements of your life will be like, and then you got that, and it's just like you're going to space and then you're coming back and you're rebuilding everything.
Wow.
And the process of watching it rebuild is so fucking fascinating. That's how addicts are born.
Sold me. I'm ready to try it. Sounds like Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen. You're just like a
did you watch
molecular
that?
guy. It was incredible. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it should be required watching. It like taught me so many things. It was just great film and just great cinema. Everything. Acting, cinematography, story. And there's not going to be more of it. That's what's so perfect about it. I hate it.
Yes.
But I love it. Like I want more, but I know I shouldn't. And I know it won't be as good.
Nope. Even if they did like an anthology style and just went a completely different story, I don't know if they'd be able to match it. But
yeah. I heard Tulsa added new points in their education program to like talk about that massacre.
Well, as much as I have to hear these goddamn yahoos talking about their fucking Confederate heritage and their history and it's fucking history, yeah, teach that shit too. Teach it. Confederate flags are trolls. Confederate statues are trolling. Fuck you. Fuck your statue and fuck your ideology. I hope you need. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all the statues are super young and like, have nothing to do with the people that think they are, do stuff and how we record history. It doesn't necessarily have to be fucking statues. We got books, goddammit. But enough.
One thing I did want to hit on. I know you're looking at your list there. One thing if you ever want to hear an example of just a reason that I was like, ugh, like, first of all, earlier you brought up the thing of like having an affinity for stand-up and a respect for it, whatever. And when I hear people talk about comedy, critiquing it without having done it, it kind of gets me, it kind of like, do you know what it's like to be up there? I kind of get that trip. It's like, and then, did you see his stand-ups? His
Yeah. Do your skit for me. Oh, here's an annoying thing. Speaking of, when you were a comedian and people found out and they said, "Hey, tell me a joke," what would you say?
Your mother's a whore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I would go to one of my favorite jokes from my own set, which got me booed off an Apollo-like show. And not booed off in the sense that like it was bad, but booed off in the sense that it is so bad, your natural reaction is one guy went, boo! And the rest of the Apollo crowd was like, boo! And I was like, nah, but I even stood there because they were like, nah. It was the most controversial booing off an Apollo-like show in the history of the Overtown fucking theater. But the joke was, hey, what's nuts? Testicles. That's like it's a simple boom, 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 Hey, that's another good one I do.
There was no fathers in the crowd that night. Solid dad joke.
Yeah.
That's nice. So do you have any regrets about comedy? Do you have any like things that you wish you had done differently about it and things would have ended up differently, or if you could have given yourself advice now to your starting self?
That, first of all, to even have an answer means that I sat around being like, oh, look at fortunately, thank God, because I would have been that person before, but I'm not there and I don't do that. So I don't really have any regrets about any of it, man. I mean, there are things that you could have done different, but that's just life in general, in terms of like, no, there's nothing I can think of that I would have done different, really. I mean, I know that I wasn't like, maybe I might have tried some YouTube shit or something, but, fuck that,
Diversify your comedy exploits.
Yeah, but I was very, very focused, and I was cool with it. Everything about that was fine. I mean, if anything, I probably would have. No, I can't. I really can't think of anything I would have done. No.
That's healthy as hell. Good. That's
the most. Yeah,
that's the outlier. What were you gonna reach for?
No, it had nothing to do with comedy. It's just the first thing I thought regretfully was just, interpersonal situations, but not an absent of comedy on top of that. It was just, beautiful women that I had opportunities with that I fucked up. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about regrets in Miami.
Yeah, me too, oddly enough. Just a lot of growing up and bad, stupid things. Did comedy affect your the way you socialize?
100%. Like from then to like, even then I knew in conversation I was slipping in material, trying it out in conversation. That's, you're doing that. But one thing that definitely happened, it gave me a boldness. One of the first things I did when I came back was there was a reunion of, high school people. And there was a dude, he was, we were cool enough, but he always was like, if we're playing the status game, he was an alpha versus my beta or whatever. And I was never like an alpha person. In my head I am, and people treat me beta, which is what throws me into anger, is when people don't treat you the way you see yourself as. But anyway, this dude, he's like, what's up, baby bro? What's up, little guy? That little guy. It wasn't like that dismissive, but Chief, it was like, baby boss. Bro. Like things like that. And I'm like, are you negging me? Do you think you're like an international player? And I totally just fucking flipped it on him. And I was like, yeah, man, like, I'm not the same person. Like, I've definitely changed. You are not running one over on me. Mm-hmm. This is not happening. There is never going to be a situation where I'm going to back down. Like, at work, I tell people that are definitely higher than me on the food chain where they stand, because what is the worst that's going to fucking happen? That's the same way that I approached the stage after a little while, after I learned what is the fucking worst that's going to happen? Where is that fear coming from? Eliminate that shit and move the fuck on. That is what I brought into life, and that is what made me a stronger person.
Do you think that because you've learned to say things that are hard to say in a way that's easier to take, that's part of it? Like, you've always wanted to say these things, like calling the boss out, but like, that's not easy to do all the time.
Without
getting fired.
No, well, I did call up my boss one day. One day my boss comes over to me, and he could have fired me. He comes up, Lamont, this is when I first started. I've just moved back to Connecticut, and he's like, Lamont, where is this? And I know my shit, and I have my confidence and everything, and I knew I didn't know what he was, and he was leading me down to hopefully finding me having fucked up at the end. So he's walking me through without telling me where he's going with it. Ultimately, this is what made him give me the respect that I fucking demanded going forward. Was he was trying to lead me down this path to where at the end he was going to find. Ultimately, he told me to do one thing. I did what he told me to do. He got it twisted and expected something different. So I was like, you told me to do this, right? And we finally worked it through, and I figured out what he wanted. And I'm like, oh, you're looking for this in this place you told me to put it yesterday. You told me to put it here yesterday, right? I'm like, why are you coming at me at a 9? This is a fucking 2 problem. I said that to him, and he's just like, okay, all right, well, and I'm like, and I never got fucked with again, and boom. And that's kind of like where
comedy.
A little bit, man. Because, and also too, that's also the thing with living in, having been fired. It also comes with having been fired. Like, you've been fired before, you can be fired again. You recovered before, you can recover again.
Like bombing.
Yeah.
Like, you think it's the worst thing in the world, but then the next day you're like, hey, I'm still alive. Food still tastes good. It's okay.
That means I don't have corona. Also, too, I like on the Facebook memories, the worst set that I ever had popped up in my memories like a week ago. And I call that set like the flop set, because there was flop sweat involved, and I flopped so hard. It was just horrible all the way around. You got pictures
of yourself with huge pit stains? That's always a good one.
No, thank God. There was no photo evidence of the night. I don't want it, and I would burn it if I saw it. But yeah, comedy definitely enhanced my existence. And between the comedy and then the personal growth stuff I did, like, I'm good. It's just like, if I could be, and the thing about Miami too, like, you can't go back. Because my rent was like $800 a month the entire time I was there, which in itself is like a 4-leaf clover,
Yeah.
So like, you can't go back, and even to move somewhere else, now's not the time to be moving anywhere. So it's like, I'm good with who I am, man. I'm grateful in a large part to comedy, for sure.
Damn. And you think you're good? You think you'll ever go back?
Perhaps. Like,
not off the table.
No, absolutely not. Like, I was thinking about doing it like right before this whole thing happened, just as a one-off, not as like a dive back in. It was just a one-off, just to see how it felt,
Yeah. Do you think being a hobbyist is a bad thing? That's like a dirty word a lot of the times when you start.
That word fucking pissed me off when I first heard it.
Right?
We're all fucking hobbyists. None of you motherfuckers are making money. This is a hobby for you. But those are those people that got like the highfalutin comedy people that invoke the words "my fans" when we're open mic comedians. Like, there was a certain amount of delusion, but also at the same time, I was in my my 30s at the time, dealing with a bunch of 20-year-olds. So I'd been through I'd seen a little bit more than they'd seen, and they were full of their delusion. I wasn't trying to destroy anybody's world, but when I hear you say, I don't know if my fans are going to be able to, I'm like, motherfucker, what the fuck are you talking about? Fans? Your fans?
Right.
Shut the fuck up.
Asking me to like your Facebook fan page that talks about your influences of Steve
I'll
Martin
do that.
and shit. It's like, you're here, you've been around a week.
I mean,
but I guess that's why everyone doesn't have that automatic 350 likes. Is because everyone has their own bar of like approval that you have to earn it.
Yeah, and then and you don't want to kill anyone's dream, man, because everyone had that.
I don't.
I was listening to one of your shows, just to get prepped, and it was like I think maybe the last one, and it was
the fatherhood guy.
We're talking about someone,
Patrick,
and I could swear in my head you were talking about a specific person, because I don't even know if you know of the person I have in mind, but there was a person that you were 100% repulsed by. At any chance, do you know who I'm talking about at all?
That I mentioned on the pod, or just?
No, you didn't mention them. It was a Miami person. They had a particular style, and you were talking about people.
Probably a few.
Okay, well, all right.
I don't know. I was there for 8 years doing comedy, but I mean, yeah. But what?
It was just I was just listening to the thing, and the way you were describing it, I was like, does he have that particular person in mind? Because it sounds like you're describing to a T.
Oh, when it's talking about like the people that don't get it.
Yeah, and they're like, I don't care. Like, I'm da-da-da-da-da. You don't like it? Oh, guess what? That's my act. Da-da-da.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was thinking of anyone specifically in Miami. I'm kind of curious to think of who you thought I was thinking of, because I'm sure it would apply to them, and I can edit it out.
I'll tell you this. If there's any, I don't know who's watching, but if there's any young comics
don't worry.
Okay, good. Well, I'm telling you, I was hearing you listening. You wanted to get 100 subscribers. You having me on here, you're dropping yourself back down to 60. And I apologize. But for the young comics, I remember we're sitting around. It was after a show, and this young comic, I'd seen him around, didn't know his name, and some of the seasoned 3-year comics were sitting around, and he comes over and he's like, "Hey, you guys want to smoke some weed?" And we're like, "Fuck yeah, we want to smoke some weed." We knew his name from that point on. When we were booking shows, we're like, oh, we know that guy's name. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of the beautiful things that I loved about comedy, was how much social smoking was going on. Yes. I fucking love that part of it, man. That was
a
awesome.
golden age. I definitely made a bunch of great friends with higher tier comedians because I smoked them out.
And then another thing about Miami too, that South Florida comedy festival that happened, I was alone in a room with Chappelle for at least a couple minutes. I got to watch his set from the side of the stage with Dion Cole and Donnell Rawlings. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So now when he's going to be at the casino and the cheap seats are like 100 and change, and I'll be up here, I'm like, how am I going to go to his show sitting up here and watching this motherfucker when I watched him from the side of the fucking stage? The last time I saw him, he did the Radio City Music Hall run, and I saw a couple of those shows. And it's like, that's okay. That's a step down, but it's still Radio City. Cool. But you think I'm going to go to a fucking casino in Connecticut for over $100 to sit in a nosebleed to watch it? Nah, man. Thank you, Connecticut. Anyway, yeah. Miami was just special to me. And even I had tickets and the vacation plan for a trip in July to Miami. I had the Airbnb, the plane, and everything. And I'm like, oh. And then every time I was watching it, as it going, it's like, oh, South Beaches, or they're having the beaches and the South Spring Breakers are down there. Okay, that's far enough out. We'll be okay.
Right. Oh, and they canceled South by Southwest? Oh, shit. Okay.
Oh, no, I didn't care about South. I was focused
just
purely on Florida.
Shit. Right.
Oh, yeah, they're canceling shit.
Ultra,
But I'm watching specifically Florida, and DeSantis is such an incredible Republican piece of shit. Where these Republicans are doing everything they can to ensure that the shit is not going away. So I'm like, if it was a smart state, that was kind of doing things, maybe it'd be because, the flight's still on. The Airbnb was still there. If I hadn't canceled, I could technically go, but you know what?
Let's talk about Florida, Lamont.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to work out. And then I see now this motherfucker doesn't know how to put gloves or masks on. All right, that's enough. We're done there. Not happening.
Yeah, sorry about that, bud.
Last time I went, I was going to go to an open mic for the first time, down there, and I just got the date wrong, so I show up at the venue and it wasn't happening. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess it wasn't meant to be. But just the idea of because I was definitely on a Thursday. I was going to go to Taurus, but I'm like, I don't know the people at Taurus anymore. I don't even want to sit there and watch. Because one of the worst things of being at depending on the night and the feeling, sitting through other people's sets when you didn't really want to was a bit of a chore. If you weren't really there and you just wanted to do your shit, you know what I'm saying? That was a bit of a thing I don't
That's a
necessarily
huge issue in comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, sitting through other people's shit.
When you should, how you should, when you shouldn't, you know? Yeah. But, so, yeah, and that feeling of going back somewhere and feeling like a stranger, even though you haven't even been there yet, and people would be happy to see you, it's just like, should I even bother? Is it going to be weird?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, like, I'd need to not have if I was going to be so, like, headstrong about comedy, to be like, oh, it's a comedy room with a microphone. I'll destroy it and I'm great. There's no problem. That's my home stage. That's where I'm, I always would overthink and rethink, and there's a certain kind of like blunt brashness I think you kind of need at a certain level. I don't know. Like that killer instinct, as I was saying.
There's a difference between killer instinct and like that not giving a fuckedness, where it's like, there's some people who look at the nooks and crannies of everything that's happening, and some people, they just get like that bird's eye view. And from that bird's eye view, you really can brush past a lot of bullshit, and I think that's the brashness that you're describing as I'm seeing it. It's like,
right.
I don't give a fuck about the minutia. I am only steamrolling my way through. And there's a lot to be said for that, but if you don't have it, then you don't fake it.
Yes. Yeah. That's
and
terrible.
It's obvious when you do try to fake it. People that aren't alpha, that try to be alpha, really only come off as pains in the ass. You're like a gnat. You come off as a gnat. Like if there's like someone who's like trying to be tough guy, but it's not really in them. And it's the same way with comedy. If you're trying to be this version of a thing and it's not you, like just
you see it every night. Oh yeah, someone trying to be someone they're not while they're figuring out their image.
Yeah, even then it's image. Why are we doing that? I mean, I get it if you're like Bobcat Goldthwait on a level, or Emo Phillips or something, but like if you're just regular Joe and you just have a beard and a flannel, I mean, what do I mean, everybody's got to find their voice, and I'll grant you that. But when you're faking it, just don't fake it. And if there's the times that you're giving advice to people, you'd be like, yeah, what's with the Jamaican accent? You got red hair. I don't know why you're trying to pull like some shit's just obvious, and it's like, yeah, but this is how I feel. Like that, again, back to that Chappelle show. This is how I feel inside. Did you see Sticks and Stones?
I did, but not recently enough to remember. Yeah. Okay. It's funny you say Jamaican accent, because that's one of the like things that I recognized about having to change my comedy up from Miami to Denver, was that Miami was a lot more like open as far as race jokes were. And when I had humor about knowing Jamaicans, and I do Jamaican accent in my jokes and stuff. And then I stopped when I got to Denver. I kind of found that it worked fine without it. And then you get to the point you're like, did it work in Miami, or should I have not done it like that in Miami, or is it just different places, or was I being insensitive, or is it fine? Even accents, I think it's such an interesting topic. Like it used to be a huge part of comedy. Like people would do accents of other cultures, whether, and now it's come to just pretty much like you can do your parents and your own accent. If it's like an out there accent, there's always exceptions and stuff, like Margaret Cho style, essentially. But my dad would do goofy accents in the car growing up, and then like I would practice accents, but now I'm very cautious about putting out accents, because like you have to be careful about it and make sure you're punching up and make sure the person using the accent is not the butt of the joke is not the accent itself. It's not like, this sounds funny. It's like, no, we're celebrating cultures and diversity here, and like I had little Haiti jokes, that kind of stuff. Of course I wouldn't try it, but yeah.
One of yours that I still remember is I put the Reskin in foreskin.
Foreskin? Yeah.
That cracks me up. There's every now and then I'll think back. Like that's just so many good memories.
Yeah, man. Miami was a golden age for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's like now, but I'd heard rumblings that it's simply not the same. Like where you could, like it's more segmented and clicky. Where it was clicky before, it's dangerously clicky where you can't even get on certain shows and whatnot. So it's like, well, maybe I did leave at the right time, because I don't want to be in the world you're describing. Sure.
A lot of these, I'm realizing it's all cycles. Like you'll have a great period with great comics and great shows and all come together, and then some will leave, some will move, stuff will change. And you'll have a period where there's not a lot of talent, not a lot of fun things happening. And it kind of just like comes back and forth. It's
weird.
Yeah, and I think that's just kind of like how talent ebbs and flows. But
everything can't be the same, man. You
right?
know?
Yeah, you can't step into the same river twice, they say.
They do. I never heard that.
It's an old Goethe or something quote, but Goethe, I don't know how to say him, but yeah,
that's the guy
the river's always flowing. You can't, yeah.
Oh, the same, meaning the water changes. Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
it's the flow in the river. It took me a minute to put that together, and then I started thinking about the somebody that I used to know.
Yeah, Gautier, the famous philosopher, painted his face up with shards and sang at a lady. You think you'll ever put out some YouTube stuff, or you could do some political shit, or nah?
There's no audience for me. You know what I do? I find myself so tremendously entertaining. The shit I write, other than like the idea of the thing that I wrote and just threw out and casually, there's things I write that I'm invested in and care very, very deeply about and couldn't imagine giving to anyone to just randomly. So if one of the things that I write to throw out there, catches the line, then I'll bring this other shit in, these other things in that I'm working on. Like I was playing, like with this quarantine, I've been playing Red Dead 2 again. Right? Because the first time I played it, I was rush playing it to avoid spoilers because it was like the hot game of the time, right? So now I'm playing it like super casually, taking my time, hunting, fishing and shit. And it's such a beautiful game. But in playing it, I came up with a whole new storyline. You know how like the Black Wall Street was depicted in Watchmen? So I was thinking of, I don't get away. There's this, like I was playing Red Dead 2 and in that period, and then I started thinking about Native Americans and black people at that time. What would that story look like? That is not a story that I've seen. Mm-hmm. So I started fucking around with that as an outline. And that would be another one that maybe I wrote, but that would be like so strong. Like, anyway. So yeah, I'm the writing that I do entertains the fuck out of me. Like I could sit down and like not watch something and just get into the fucking many worlds that I have created. Mm-hmm. And like the stories are so fucking dense. There's things that happen, like, you know how like you appreciated in Lost, like there's something they brought up in season 1. Oh, look at them bring it up in season 4. Oh my gosh. And that's like, I have been brought up appreciating the cool shit that happened. And this one thing that I've worked on for so long, like I saw an email from 2010, an early draft. And so like these characters have been playing around in my head and it's like, this is so fucking dope. But really everybody wants this fucking retread bullshit, this fucking half milk toast shit that you're just like you don't fucking
you don't
deserve.
Think there's an audience for your kind of content?
There is an audience. I don't have the tolerance for the steps and the bullshit I got to go through to get it to where it needs to be made. And it's so fucking gratifying and entertaining to me to come up with this shit that I don't even want them in my fucking house. You know what I'm saying?
Damn.
I've learned to that my entertainment, while it doesn't draw, it does entertain me. So how about I entertain the audience, the most important audience member in the world, this guy, you know?
You know, that's very refreshing because so many, I think a lot of people lose the reason that they get into comedies because they have such a great relationship with comedy, with humor, and it's such a big part of their lives. And then somehow it just gets shifted into like, I must give this to other people. I must make other people laugh. My reason for being is to make other people laugh. And it's like, you're just forgetting what a good time you can have by yourself, even, just enjoying being a funny person or seeing the humor in life,
Another thing that too, from being a comedian and having those conversations where that's another thing I appreciate is the conversational boundaries are kind of, you hear this from every comedy podcast, but when you're talking to comedians, everyone gets it that, like white people come in saying the N-word. I'm not even a person that uses the N-word, but I know where they're coming from when they're saying, you know what I'm saying? And that's in the right circumstance. Yeah. So like, there's just boundaries that are down and you get it because you're within this, hey, we all get it because we're all in this tribe. And, and I there's so now when I'm here and I talk to like people that have never been in it, my boundaries, I kind of have to realize to rein it in to have conversation with people. Otherwise, I'll be like, abortion, eat that shit, and just be like, oh my God.
Right. They're not on your comedy level, so to speak,
Right.
to be able to jump
Well,
to 10.
the boundaries are different. The lines are different.
Well,
that's one thing that was an adjustment.
So I guess we're getting towards the end here.
No, we're not. No, we're not, Daniel. No.
We're just getting started. Chapter 1, the appendix. What is kind of like, what about comedy would you like the general population to know and understand about comedy that they just don't get?
I haven't made it clear. I don't think there's any fixing or changing the way the world is. I think this is such a downward slope. When comedy comes back, maybe this will be the thing that lets people say, how about we take away that? I don't know, because here's the difference between this and 9/11 was after 9/11, there was a definite shift. This just seems to be like a muddy, murky thing, right? So like, I don't know if comedy is going to be able to like change. Like after 9/11, there was a bit of a shift. Now, when people come back, are they still going to be into that? You're saying the wrong thing. I don't like that. Are they going to be like, I got bigger fucking problems. Let's just let comedy be comedy, So anything can be said. What can the public do? Literally, this question before COVID would be worth the pondering, but this is such a mystery going forward. Anything can happen.
Total redefinition of comedy could happen. Stand-up could find a whole new groove.
It depends on how bored people are when we come out of this. Like, are they like, I want to go back to being miserable about something besides being locked in my house. If they want to like be miserable about something else, they'll find another laser sight for the cat to go after, But if not, then they'll go back to shitting on that. Oh, I meant to drop this in. A New York Times has this podcast where it was the woke black woman who was the social commentator, and they did a review of Sticks and Stones. And if you ever wanted to hear what someone who should not even listen to comedy thinks about comedy, it was one of the most frustrating audio experiences of my life. It's like, you don't deserve this. He's like, So
sure, it's not for you. Not all comedy is for everyone.
Right? Maybe you shouldn't do this. I don't crochet because I don't find enjoyment in it, but I don't say fuck crochet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know. So good luck to comedy.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, definitely. It's like a downtime, like all of us have to redefine ourselves. Comedy itself has a downtime to redefine itself, and entertainment in general. Like shows are stopping production, and like we're not going to have shit to watch in a little bit, so people are going to be a lot more free with their choices, at least for a little while.
It's a good thing there's a million things to watch, though.
There's infinity. So how do you choose?
I'll tell you one thing that kind of annoys me. If I see one more commercial with "We're in this together," we're not in this together. That is as big as a lie as America's the melting pot or all men are created equal. That is just stop it with the lies. All right.
Pay your employees what it costs to produce this fucking commercial, and give them hazard pay or extra pay. Don't just fucking lip service us about how you care.
This is something that I posted on Facebook. Sorry if you saw it, but it's like they keep calling, knock yourself out. They keep calling people like heroes, like all these people, essential workers, heroes. When was the last time you thought about giving Superman a raise? Like, you never even considered it.
He doesn't get paid shit. He doesn't have a salary. He's a reporter.
So you don't even have to think about, how you're going to compensate that hero. So unless there's some kind of serious structural changes in America, I mean, we can't. I think it's so glaringly apparent that we can't go back to what we were, but we're heading right back down the path of where we were. And it's like, we just missed such an opportunity. Sure,
the powers that be are going to do everything they can to take us back to what was the status quo. But at the worst case scenario, some things will change because we've just literally seen too many cracks, so many fall. They're like, wow, this state is providing childcare for all of their workers. Why couldn't they have done that last month? Why did it take a pandemic to get us to think about giving like a universal basic income during these times and like speeding up it's almost like Trump himself. It's like he's the giant pimple that accumulates all of the disgusting pus into one source so we can finally pop that shit.
Unfortunately, Trump is just the whitehead, and the entire pimple is white nationalism.
Oh man,
So
it's a bad diet of
unfortunately,
sugar and
it's
touching your
just
face.
it's such a bigger problem, man, because Hitler didn't do his shit by himself the same way Trump ain't doing all his shit by himself.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And the shit is only ramping up. It's not even settling down. These motherfuckers storming capitals armed. Come on, man.
Saying grabbing for their guns, and the cops are just like, "Sir, please calm down."
Meanwhile, black people wearing masks are getting fucking knocked on the ground left and right.
Or
So
the guy who was just murdered by those two assholes.
that was 2 months ago, but still.
Was that just 2 months ago? And now that's just hitting, like, it's reaching news critical mass now?
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's yeah. And then there's all the ones that you don't hear about. So,
Well, what do you want to leave people with? Tell everyone, how we're going to destroy this fucking white hegemony. I don't know how to say that. Just this horrible.
Listen.
You talk about it a lot in your posts and stuff, so I don't know.
Wealthy, white, right-wing men and the dangerous idiots that support them will not stop until everything that you love is reduced to ashes. White nationalism is a mental deficiency that would rather see destruction of everything by their hand than anything resembling a shared prosperity. So, they are not losing. Then this other side can't get our shit together long enough. Like, if you see Morning Joe is 3 hours, 5 days a week of rehashing Twitter, you know what I'm saying? Versus Fox News. I'm not saying Fox News is so effective in that I was talking to my neighbor, right? He was a small talk neighbor, and he started in with all the talking points. This is the first time he got into politics. All the talking points, all of them. And he felt it like he was, and that was bone chilling to me. So knowing that that's out there and Morning Joke is just like rehashing shit as opposed to, the Today Show has Martin or Willard Scott and what's the guy, Al Roker saying, here's what's happening in your neck of the woods. That would be delightful if they said, we're going to go to your local affiliate and tell you where you can go and what you can do. Here's where a phone bank is. Here's where you can volunteer. We are not on our shit. And I am not a person that people listen to. So all I do, I feel like I'm the greatest American hero. Like I got this power without the fucking instruction book of how to most effectively use it. But all I know is I see it as fucking clear as 1,000 suns right in my face, that if you're not stopping it, you're walking right into destruction. So what I would say, work on yourself. That's all you got. Be smarter and find your happiness. Find your way to be happy. Find what makes you able to deal with the worst that could be thrown at you. That is the best thing you can do for yourself, is finding your happiness, finding what you can do that doesn't require anything. You got to have backup plans. Like some people didn't know what to do when they were sequestered in their house for months at a time. I have been set up for this forever. I created a fucking recording booth for voiceover shit. I got a whole lot. I've got so much shit that I can do. I can do another fucking, give me another 4 or 5 months of this shit, man. I'm good. Now, this is different because I'm working from home and I'm very fortunate, but also that goes, bottom line is that what I would say, your mindset is the most important thing, and it's pretty much the only thing you got. You make sure that it's the strongest thing that you got, and if you got to work on it, like we worked on our comedy, work on your mind and your abilities to deal with everything that's going to be thrown at you, because it's only going to be more and it's only going to be heavier, and all you have is you. And if you got to look out for other people, you still got to be strong enough to look out for those other people. So look out for your mental fucking well-being and stability. Manage your expectations, because if you go in expecting things, you're only going to be disappointed. So manage your expectations, strengthen your mind. And that's, you know what I'm saying? Look out for your lock down your foundation. Your foundation's your mind.
Sure. Start from there. If you're going to change the world, start from your corner.
Fuck the world, live in your corner and fix that shit and make that shit fucking delightful.
All right. Well, some thoughtful, wise words to end on, and I hope everyone does dwell on them. This was a great interview to show that, like, not walking away from comedy doesn't always have to be this like devastating fucking life departure and change. It's just like another phase in it. It doesn't define you. Let it strengthen you. Don't let it weaken you. Take care of yourself.
Don't look back in anger, I heard him say.
Ooh. All right. Well, any final? It's funny because this would be the normal part where people would plug their exploits, but the people I interview on this podcast are exploitless, regardless of Corona.
I got nothing.
Yeah,
nothing to promote.
I
write dope shit. You will.
Yeah. You know, fire rants on Facebook. People like a good Facebook rant. Just takes one to go.
No, they don't. I have lost so many followers. I have people are like unfollow. But you know what? It doesn't matter to me because I was born before the internet, so it's like there was a time the internet really fucking mattered to me, and I found myself being disgusted. I was banned from Twitter. I got kicked off the politics Reddit subreddit because you know what I'm saying. So it's like, look, and the thing is, I can argue any of the shit that happened, but fuck it, it's gone. It's gone. You know what? Fuck it. So maintain your shit, man.
Maintain your shit. Amen. Well, thanks again for being here today, Lamont. Appreciate it. It was awesome to catch up.
Good talking to you, man.
All right. And now bye for the listeners before we really dish some shit.
Oh.
Bye. Cool. Click.